Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we are discussing the twin Primarchs of the Alpha Legion, Alpharius and Omegon, and a very intriguing revelation that the Great Crusade was in fact a test for the Primarchs. A spoiler warning to begin here, as the events we're discussing today are from the Horus Heresy short story Council of Truth by author Mike Brooks. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Okay, now Council of Truth is a story set back during the Great Crusade, where the Alpha Legion are conducting an appropriately named Council of Truth. Essentially what this is 3 members of the Legion questioning one another on a particular situation, not to ascertain any guilt or judgment, but to simply gain greater understanding of what's transpired, to see what truth can be revealed, hence the name. And this particular council is being conducted by Alpharius and 2 unknown legionaries, with Omegon being the target of the questions. And the topic is the criticism that they have received from Rabute Guilliman, due to their joint compliance of Testra. And we'll be discussing this more in depth in the next upload, as I want to talk about the Guilliman-Alpharius feud this week. However, specifically for today, during the questioning, Omegon makes an extremely interesting comment regarding the Great Crusade. How, in his opinion, the Emperor was clearly viewing it as far more than just a reunification of mankind. How the true purpose was actually a test for the Primarchs. Guilliman is the same as the others. They either fail to recognise their own weaknesses, or they assume that one of the rest of us can be called upon to fill the gap. Assuming what you say is true, the third questioner speaks up. Why should your brothers not feel this way? Because it will not always be true, the Primarch says boldly. Our father created us, but quite clearly his creations are neither perfect nor indispensable to him. There were 20 legions once, and 2 more Primarchs than those that bestride the galaxy today, clad in the panoply of war. For all that my brothers invoke memories of the myths of demigods in the minds of the mortals, for all that we are far beyond human, there have been 2 occasions when flawed tools were discarded. Who is to say the same thing may not happen again? If silence can have a flavour, the one that now fills the chamber tastes of shock. When my father found me, there was no sense of the last member of a family being brought home. The Primarch continues. Not as I have heard the notion of family described by mortals. There was a sense of satisfaction, of completeness, of the final piece of a puzzle being located and slotted into place. I did not spend long with my father, not long compared to some of my brothers, who were by his side for decades, and shared with him the apparent joy of each new sibling's recovery. However, in my time with him, I learned what many of my brothers seem to have missed, that we are my father's tools. My brothers conquer worlds and bring them into compliance, and they think that that is all that is required of them. You are saying that it is not? The first questioner asks. The Great Crusade is about more than just reuniting humanity, the Primarch says. That is a purpose, but it is not the purpose. My father has created these tools, and now he tests them, and the Crusade is the best arena for that test. He will test us to destruction if he needs to. For some of us, he already has. My father's vision goes beyond the Crusade. He knows what must come next, but he does not share that with us. Now, what a statement that is. Again, the key piece of it. The Great Crusade is about more than just reuniting humanity. That is a purpose, but it is not the purpose. My father has created these tools, and now he tests them, and the Crusade is the best arena for that test. He will test us to destruction if he needs to. For some of us, he already has. Now, Omegon is using this explanation to show why Guilliman's same method of war, constantly repeated, is inferior. However, in doing so, that larger question he poses is extremely interesting. So, is it? Is or was the Great Crusade the Emperor testing his Primarchs? Was he testing them to see who could be used in the next stage of his plan? Well, it's a real intriguing premise to me, and I actually think Omegon makes some very valid points. Firstly, of course, 2 Primarchs have already been found wanting, the original 20 down to 18. Most likely taken out by Leman Russ and his Space Wolves. One seemingly killed, the other possibly returned to the throne world first, for judgment, given the finding of what was possibly his chamber. We'll never know what the 2 lost Primarchs did wrong, but the fact remains that they inarguably failed in some way. Thus, as Omegon correctly states, our father created us, but quite clearly his creations are neither perfect nor indispensable to him. The terminology is on the colder side of things here, but it's right. It's fact. In eradicating the 2 lost Primarchs, the Emperor proved that the Primarchs are not indispensable, just as the Thunder Warriors before them. Secondly, though Omegon is surmising, we know there actually was a next stage of the plan after the Great Crusade. That indeed the Emperor planned to conquer the Webway. So that makes the argument for the Primarchs being tested feasible. It makes sense that the Emperor would want to make use of his Primarchs, his generals, the unparalleled demigods of war that they are. And thirdly, we already know that Magnus the Red was in fact created with that next stage in mind, for he was made to man the Golden Throne, freeing the Emperor from having to do so, which is beyond doubt now, and referenced countless times throughout the lore. I believe best confirmed by Malcador the Sigillite. His memories are Antarctic bright. The day he first showed me the throne, and told me what it did. The shining look of disbelief in my eyes. The evening when we both realised that I could moderate its functions too. That my mind, like his, had the capacity to engage with it and not instantly perish. The night when we concluded, through plain logical deduction, that there might come a day when I would have to take his place. In almost every configuration of the future we could model, someone would have to do it. I was not afraid. Not then. Not now. I knew what that would mean. I brushed it off as a thing that would have to happen if it came to it. He hoped it never would, because he knew what it would mean too. And for the longest time, It seemed unlikely. He had built a contingency to avoid it ever becoming compulsory. The contingency's name was Magnus. So, if Magnus had a role post-Great Crusade, why not the other Primarchs too? It's certainly feasible. And for me, the Emperor placing his shield within the mysterious psychic forest walkways of Caliban certainly implied to me he had future plans for Lion L. Johnson too, for him to reach a later stage of potential. So why not other, if not all the Primarchs as well? Again, for me it is feasible, if not most likely. Now, I will say I disagree with Omegon in his statement that the test was the true purpose of the Great Crusade, because I think that greatly undermines the difficulty of conquering the galaxy. Because let's not forget, Amar Astarte, the Emperor's chief geneticist and contributor to the Astartes project, hence the name, was prepared and in fact tried to destroy the legions when it seemed the Primarchs were lost. So the Emperor's unifying of mankind was absolutely in no way a given. But that doesn't mean the Great Crusade wasn't a test in some manner for the Primarchs still. Could the Emperor have been evaluating the Primarchs in regards to the future? Absolutely. How could he not be even? And so in that regard, I think Omegon is absolutely right. Some Primarchs were perhaps created with the future war in the Webway in mind. Others may be the defense of the Imperium. Who knows? Maybe even an ultimate war against chaos within the warp. We will never know for sure. But it's possible, and I think logical to assume, the Emperor and Malcador were evaluating the Primarchs throughout the Great Crusade. Now, the big unknown factor that came into play was the Emperor's humanity, his unexpectedly growing attached to the Primarchs, viewing them as his sons. This again has been really confirmed beyond doubt now. The best evidence again for me coming from Malcador the Sigillite, who showed his surprise at it in conversation with Valdor in the novel Valdor Birth of the Imperium, long before the first Primarchs had even been found. And of course Malcador himself would grow attached to the Primarchs in time, come to love them as sons himself. Referenced as uncle by some of them, such as the Angel Sanguinius. So all of this makes the eradication of any Primarchs at the end of the Crusade, who were deemed to have failed, unlikely to me. And yes, we have the Lost Two to consider, but I think we all agree they were removed for far more grievous reasons than simply underperforming in some way. And so, all in all, overall, no, I don't think the Great Crusade's true purpose was to test the Primarchs for the next stage. I think it was very much to unify mankind and conquer the galaxy, to forge the Imperium. But I do agree with Omegon that the Emperor surely would have been appraising the Primarch's performance throughout it, and that he definitely had future roles in store for some of them at the very least, as shown by Magnus the Red and Lion L. Johnson for me. But as always everyone, what do you think? Do you agree with Omegon that the Great Crusade's true purpose was to test the Primarchs for the next stage of the Emperor's plan? Or do you disagree? Or like me, do you see some truth in Omegon's opinion? that while not the primary purpose of the Great Crusade, the Emperor would have been using it as a test and appraising the Primarchs for their performance, naturally seeing what Primarchs he could rely on for the future he had in mind. And if that is the case, which Primarchs do you think the Emperor and Malcador would pass? And which of them would they fail? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.